Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Dr. Faraz Shafiq, your course director. Currently, I am working as an assistant professor at Department of Anesthesiology, the Aga Khan University Hospital. The topic of my talk is related to infection control measures, including donning and doffing. So, I'll be specifically discussing what infection control measures are required before proceeding with intubation. This would also include understanding about the aerosol generating procedures and stepwise approach required for correct donning and doffing. I want to start my presentation with the results of our recent survey conducted amongst various healthcare professionals of Pakistan. The results are alarming. We often talk about the availability of PPEs, but it's not the only thing which we need. However, more important is administrative support, teaching, and training. And this is actually the logic behind designing this course. So, the infection usually spreads through inoculation of mucous membrane, and this inoculation can occur by getting exposure of viral particles in the form of either fomites, droplets, or aerosols. So, depending upon the size, these viral particles can either be categorized into large infectious droplets, small infectious droplets, and infectious droplets nuclei. So, the large infectious droplets, so their size is big and they can quickly fall on the ground. And after falling on the ground, they can travel a distance of only 1 to 3 feet, while a small infectious droplet can travel a distance of around 3 to 5 feet. We are more concerned about infectious droplet nuclei, the red one. They are really small, the size is of less than 5 micron, and they can float in the air for a longer period of time. So depending upon their sizes, it becomes logical that for large infectious droplet, you have to take necessary contact precautions. For small infectious droplets, you have to take droplet precautions. Similarly, for infectious nuclei, you have to take full airborne precautions. Besides, it's also very important for us to understand that at the time of respiratory illness, that is, when we came across these patients at the time of intubation, the size of their secretions would be increased, their viral load becomes significant, and the spread of particles become huge while you are performing aerosol generating procedures. So what are the aerosol generating procedures? So these are the procedures which produce large amount of smaller droplets, larger droplets, and airborne particles. Amongst various reported procedures, tracheal intubation is at the top of the list. So it's at the top of the list in terms of generating aerosols. Same goes to for procedures like tracheostomy, bag mask ventilation. Though literature is bit inconclusive about procedures like CPR and defibrillation, but in my opinion, there is no harm in taking necessary precautions while performing these procedures. So just to give you an idea, I'm sharing with you a simulated video from Sick Kid Hospital, Canada. This shows you the generation of aerosols during high flow nasal cannulation. So in the first image, the flow is at 10 liters per minute. So you can see the generation of aerosols here. In the second one, the flow is at 25 liters per minute. In the third one, this flow is at 25 liters per minute with the simulated cuff. So you can see the burden of aerosols in this scenario. And in the last one, the flow is at 25 liters per minute in the presence of face mask. So you can judge how important for us to be safe during aerosol generating procedures. What's the way out? So definitely these kind of procedures needs to be planned, needs to be done by trained medical staffs only. Similarly, limited number of people should be around while performing these procedures. And definitely at the end we have to take all necessary precautions in terms of preventing ourselves from airborne particles. So the prevention from airborne particles necessitates the use of N95 or respirator mask, application of face shield, wearing of full-sleeved water-resistant gown, and double gloves. So these are the basic requirements for preventing ourselves from airborne particles. Besides, it's also very important for us to understand what is donning and what is doffing. Donning is wearing off of personal protective equipment, while doffing is taking them off. Both needs to be done in a pre-specified sequence. Besides, both of these procedures needs to be done against the checklist having an availability of observer. Remember, doffing would be the time and it would be the high risk time where most of the anesthetists can get infected. So the first step of donning process starts with the application of water resistant full sleeve gown. In the next step, you have to take on respirator or N95 mask, whatever is available to you. Remember, both needs to be fit tested before use. In the third step, you have to wear eye shield, and lastly, you have to take on double gloves. Doffing sequence. So it's also very important for us to follow the doffing sequence. As I've told you earlier, it would be the high risk time where we can get infected. So in the first step of doffing, you have to take off your gloves as mentioned in the image here. In the second step, gown needs to be disposed of. Make sure you have to follow the same pattern as I'm showing you in the picture. In the third step, you have to take off your eye protection, and lastly, you have to take off your respirator. Remember, respirator needs to be taken off outside the room. And in the last step, you have to wash your hand with soap or water or alcohol rub, whatever is available to you. Be careful about your neck area. It can get easily infected. Similarly, if you are intubating a patient, the wrist area of anesthetist can get infected. Though the use of shoe cover is still not journalized and its use is questionable, but if you are using it, you have to be very careful in terms of disposing them off. And last but not the least, there is no harm in having shower facilities at the end of performing aerosol generating procedures. Depending upon the availability, one can use paper hood while doing the intubation. The recent literature is showing more convincing result with the use of paper hood in comparison to N95 mask. It provides better viral protection, it does not require fit test, and definitely would be really useful for doctors having beard, and these doctors have got problem with the fit test if they are using N95 mask or the respirator. In resource limited setup, one can opt the strategy of using plastic drapes or hood during the intubation, and that's how you are going to prevent yourself from aerosols. So various reports are available in the literature. You have to opt any of the technique which suits you, which suits your circumstances. So after doing the intubation, the job is not over. Remember, airborne particles would remain in the room for a significant period of time, and their clearance depends upon viral load and number of air exchanges in the room. Till that time, you have to take all necessary airborne precautions. So just to give you an example, if the air exchanges in your room is 2 to 4 per hour, which is the usual case for most of the general ward scenarios, so the time required for removal of 99% particles in this scenario is would be of 138 minutes. Similarly, if air exchanges at rate of 20 to 50, so this is the scenario for most of our operation theaters, so the room would be clear within 6 minutes. So this is all about my presentation. So the take home message is tracheal intubation is high risk procedure. You have to take full airborne precautions, and definitely intubation needs to be done by trained medical personnel. Donning and doffing periods both are very critical. You have to be logical, you have to follow the sequence, and you have got system of body to observe you at both of these times. Doffing would be the time where most of the anesthetists can get infected. Both of these procedures needs to be done against the checklist. Thank you.